What's up everybody, my name is Justin Fricke and I am a freelance content creator with a focus on photo, video, and writing, primarily in the outdoor space. And in addition to that, I've been living van life for approximately like 18 months now. And I'm joined with my friend Katie, who is actually the whole inspiration behind me doing van life. So Katie, tell everyone about yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Katie Boue. I'm also a freelance thing. I work in public lands advocacy and I'm based here in Salt Lake City now, but used to live in a big old yellow Sprinter van and also did a solo summer on the road last summer, kind of around the West Coast.
One of the questions that I get asked most often, and I'm sure Katie, you've gotten that question asked a lot as well, is what are your monthly expenses? So we wanted to take a quick second, put this video together and kind of go through what my monthly expenses look like currently, and then also what Katie's monthly expenses looked like whenever she was on the road full time as well. So let's jump into it. First up is gas, and gas can be a little tricky because some months, you know, you're moving around a lot, other months you're able to just kind of sit down in one spot and you're not driving around a whole lot. But for me, I figured my main figure is about 300 bucks a month on gas. I drive a 4150. On a good day, I get 15 to 17 miles per gallon. So I kind of do my best to just find a really cool spot. Lately, that's been Moab, and just kind of stay there and do adventures around there and meet up with friends and all that kind of stuff. What did your gas expense look like?
My gas expenses weren't quite as expensive as his. I was traveling with a partner and we made it a pretty strong priority to get somewhere and then stay there for as long as we could possibly squeeze the climbing out of that place. So we would stay in places for between 3 and 4 weeks at a time. We stayed in Joe's Valley for 3 months, so that was a quarter of very low gas expenses, but it came out to about 200 bucks a month.
Nice. And what were you driving?
I was driving a 2005 Dodge Sprinter, high top.
One of the ways that I found that I can save money on a monthly basis is through groceries. It's real easy to kind of ball out and get really nice, expensive name brand things, but I personally like to keep groceries as cheap as possible. So some of my diet, it does not look pretty at all. Katie has seen it in my diet. It's not even mediocre at best. It's horrendous at best.
It's really bad, guys. It made me sad on a maternal level. I just wanted to take care of him. What is your number though?
My number, I spend about 200 bucks a month on groceries, and I'm able to kind of keep that pretty darn low because it's ham and cheese sandwiches. I try and buy things in bulk quantities, and then I'll even do just like the knockoff brand Chef Boyardee's, where I'm getting SpaghettiO rings for 50 to 79 cents a can. Not the best by any means, as Katie gives me the death glare, but it's a good way to save money. So I try and stick to about 200 bucks a month on groceries, and that's separate from going out to eat though, which we'll get to in a minute.
And to provide you some perspective on the fact that you don't have to eat just ham and cheese sandwiches all the time, I was traveling with my partner Nico, and so there were 2 of us being fed for about $2.50 a month, and we ate a ton of fresh vegetables. If you invest in the front end on a nice cast iron, get yourself a nice cooking setup, you don't have to eat out of a can all the time. Although we definitely had a few months where there was like canned peas happening for dinner a lot. But fresh produce is really, really affordable. You can absolutely buy it, and you can stay in a dirtbag budget too.
One of the most important things for me at least is my cell phone, and I have an unlimited data plan, so my payment on my cell phone is a little bit higher. I'm paying about 97 bucks a month for my cell phone, but again, I have unlimited data, which I really love to have. What did your cell phone bill look like?
So I did my year-long trip right after I graduated from college. So that was like 6 years ago, and I was still on the family plan. Thank you, Mom and Dad. So I didn't have to deal with a cell phone expense, which is a huge, huge blessing. If you are young and able to kind of pull that off, there's no shame.
No shame at all.
No shame.
None whatsoever.
I could buy a lot more cans of peas every month with all that money I saved.
And then, so right after a cell phone, I would say insurance is a really big thing. Depending on like what you're getting, car insurance can really range all over the place. For a 4150, I pay 95 bucks a month. And for me, that's a pretty decent price. I've also heard of a lot more. What does insurance on a Dodge Sprinter van look like?
So I had my Dodge Sprinter van registered as a passenger vehicle and not a cargo vehicle, so it wasn't anything special. and I think I paid for the total for the whole year was about $1,200 bucks. So it's about $100 a month. Health insurance is pretty important if you're going to be spending a year traveling specifically to do outdoor things.
Yeah.
My trip was specifically for climbing, so health insurance was definitely a necessity. I got pretty lucky and was on, my mom works in a hospital, so I had a banger health insurance plan, and I was still under 26, so I was on that like great family plan.
Gosh.
But my partner who was on the trip with me didn't have health insurance at all, and it was nerve-wracking. He was definitely a little bit more daring than I was, generally speaking. So you really don't want to have to worry about that. I mean, if you're in the middle of the woods, you don't want to have to worry about like, what happens if I break my leg. So don't skimp on the health insurance.
For me, my health insurance costs about $250 a month. I'm trying to get that premium lowered a little bit just based off my 2016 taxes. But health insurance, it can definitely be expensive, but I really think it's worth it too. There's been some times where it's really nice to have the health insurance and not have to worry about something like that. And then on top of health insurance, I have what's called property insurance. A lot of people don't know about property insurance, and I think it's a great thing. The way that I kind of think about it is any of my camera gear that's worth $200 or more, I definitely get insurance on it. And it was really easy. I went to the insurance company that I insure my van through and just pulled out a property insurance plan. And I pay a total of like $17 a month on that. And I have, please don't rob me, I have about $10,000 worth of camera gear insured. And it's $17 a month. And it's way better, in my opinion, than one of those like extra care plans like that camera company tries to upsell you on, or like a Best Buy or anything like that. So if you do have expensive stuff that you're traveling with, highly recommend property insurance.
As someone who didn't have property insurance during my trip, I totally agree with Justin. For $17 a month, it's such a great peace of mind. I didn't have any insurance on my belongings and also had about $15,000 worth of equipment in there, which was my livelihood. I was still working on the road, so I really, really would have been devastated to lose my laptop or my camera. And I thought about that a lot too. It's kind of like the health insurance.
Yeah,
you just don't want to have that in the back of your mind. When you're on the road, coffee and Wi-Fi become a absolute necessity. Right along there with water, shelter, and warmth, coffee and Wi-Fi. I think I spent about $200 a month on coffee and Wi-Fi. I was working as a copywriter still, and when I lived in the van for the year, it's kind of when my writing career really started to come up. So I spent a lot of time buying $5 pastries that I really did.
Dang, that's how.
It really adds up. I also, on my solo trip that I did this past summer, got a Wi-Fi hotspot in order to theoretically alleviate the amount of time that I spent in coffee shops buying coconut water. To be honest, I still spend the same amount of time in coffee shops buying coconut water, but it was nice to have. Maybe it helped a little bit, and that was about $100 and change a month. For a Verizon hotspot, I use 10 gigs of data. I'm barely in that.
My coffee consumption is probably about the same as Katie's, but I'm not really one to ball out on the pastries. I usually go straight to a Starbucks, and I am at gold status on Starbucks, but I usually just stick with like the $2 tall coffee, just because I'm literally there for the reliable Wi-Fi. And then I'll also bring snacks in because no one in Starbucks really cares all that much. I would really like to get a Wi-Fi hotspot. I know that some phones with data plans can have it. Mine just doesn't have that, unfortunately. Another great source though, if you do need to get Wi-Fi on the road, is definitely libraries. Sometimes libraries are very much hit or miss though, I think. Sometimes they can have great Wi-Fi, other times it's like living in the Stone Age almost.
But if you do find the Wi-Fi at a public library, it's
go there.
Like a coffee shop without the $5 pastries.
Exactly. And then, so my last expense would have to be a storage unit. I do still have some stuff back in Florida. I split a storage unit and the whole cost with my parents. I pay about $60 a month on that. I think it's a necessity. Sometimes people can really just completely downsize and do without a storage unit. I, on the other hand, can't.
If you can downsize, it's a great practice in minimalism.
It is.
And really purging your life. But sometimes you need a storage unit.
Yeah. So you didn't have a storage unit?
I did not have a storage unit. I had about 3 boxes of stuff that I put in my childhood room down in Miami, and it's still sitting there.
Nice.
Thanks, Mom.
So what are your end monthly expenses for necessities? That came out to be
My end monthly expenses came out to be about between 800 and $1,000 depending on the month.
Solid. And mine have come out to be about $1,089, again, depending on the month.
Yeah, and to be fair, my trip was with another person, so I paid for pretty much everything. We kind of put all of our money together, and I started the trip with about $10,000 combined between the two of us, and then we just kind of divvied it up as much as we could, and I took jobs as I could to supplement that. Ran pretty low, but then it also depends. My solo trip was 4 months around the West Coast, and I did that as a work trip. So my employer actually paid for the van rental, they paid for all my gas, and they paid for a number of other expenses. So I basically just have to feed myself and pay for camping sometimes. So the expenses there were a lot.
Katie brings up a good point with camping. Something that I do my best to never have to pay for is camping. And I think you pretty much did the same thing too, both times when you're on the road, right? Yeah,
I tried to as much as I can. When I was solo, I definitely stayed in more developed sites a bit more often, just for safety and peace of mind, but you keep it pretty cheap.
Yeah, I'm a guy, so there's definitely maybe some sexism going on or something like that, but I feel pretty darn safe anywhere. I can only imagine being like a solo female traveler. That's a little different. Security issue is a little different.
Yeah, if you ever feel insecure, just go to paid campsite. It's worth $10.
One great resource to find free campsites is this website called freecampsites.net. It's user-generated content. It's like reviews, forums, kind of stuff. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah. So anyone, it's kind of like a Yelp for free campsites. It also has paid campsites on there as well. But so you type in where you are, it pulls up a map, and it'll show you all the free campsites that are around. And it's definitely not luxurious camping. Sometimes you'll get a bathroom or a pit toilet, but it's usually national forest, kind of a big ditch on the side of the road like we're sitting in now, and you just pull over and camp for the night. But if you're in a van, you're self-sufficient, so you don't really need much.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't know is that you're free to camp anywhere in a national forest or Bureau of Land Management land, BLM land, as long as there aren't signs posted saying no camping. It's free public land to camp on, which is terrific, so might as well just go out and enjoy it. Again, to what Katie was saying, you're not really gonna have amenities of a campground, but it's free and it's beautiful, so might as well just go for it.
And you'll usually find some of the most remote, peaceful sites because nobody else is out there, and it's perfect.
In addition to all the necessities, you can splurge on camping. You can also splurge on restaurants, alcohol. I mean, you've been to some crazy, awesome places. I've been to some great places. And I feel like sometimes you kind of feel like you need to just experience the culture in some way, shape, or form. You
don't always want to be worrying about your finances and feeling like you need to keep things super, super tight. So I think it's really important to make room in your budget for splurges. Yeah. You know, if you're in Maine, you should probably eat a lobster.
Yep.
That's just straight up. You are going to have, I feel like, less of an experience if you don't let yourself experience those things.
And to Katie's point too, sometimes you really just need to go out and have a good meal. She told my brother and I that last year whenever we first started on the road together. And this was like week 2 in or so. She's like, there's going to be a point where you guys are going to get so mad at each other that you're just going to need to have a good meal. And that's very true. So definitely, I would highly suggest building kind of like restaurant alcohol bars into your budget a little bit if you can. Don't go crazy, but it is really nice. One expense that I didn't mention in necessities would be a car payment. And that's because I bought my van with cash. It's free and clear. But I know that some people do need to get a car payment. What was your take on that?
I took out a loan and bought my van in loan cash.
Yeah.
And then paid off that loan. Pretty much as soon as I ended the trip, I sold the van and everything like that.
Nice.
So it was about, I think I negotiated the guy down to $12,200 for the spreader. And then it needed a couple grand to park in front of the road.
Yeah. So keep in mind, car payments, you might have to do it, you might not. If you don't have a car payment, it's way easier on the road, just one less expense to have.
If there is one luxury that I would suggest everyone buy who is traveling around in North America, get a national parks pass. It is the single greatest $80 investment I've ever made. I get one every year now.
Yep.
And I use it, I got value out of it within the first month.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, you can usually get half off camping in the national parks, and then some national parks are way more expensive than others. But if you have a national parks pass, that almost pays for itself right there. Just ask for one for Christmas. That's what I do. No joke. It's a great Christmas present.
It's a great Christmas present. If you're living in a van to travel around the country, there's probably a good likelihood that you're doing it to do some rad outdoor pursuits. And if I've learned anything from the last few years of collecting hobbies, it's that outdoor activities are pretty expensive.
Yes. And also, if you already have all the outdoor gear that you need, you also need to be thinking about whether or not it might be needing replacing at some point in time. Hopefully you're going to use it a lot, and if you do, it's going to need to get replaced. So building in something for like outdoor gear, camera gear, anything like that, it's probably a really good idea to have that into your monthly budget, or at least being able to be saving up for it.
That's something that I hadn't thought of when I left on my trip, and most of my quick draws and climbing hardware were hand-me-downs from the last 5 years, and I think on the second or third week of the trip, we realized that we needed to retire pretty much every single one of our carabiners and dog bones.
That's expensive.
It was rough. Oh yeah, it was a very expensive day.
On your trip, you might be wanting to pick up some souvenirs, do some touristy things as well. I mean, they're super fun to do. One thing that I really like to do is collect postcards, and I like to send postcards out to people. So on my vlog, sometimes I'll just pose a question, have people give me an answer in the comments below, and the first X amount of people to do that, I'll send them a postcard. And then I also really like to collect stickers and put them on my Nalgene as well. It's kind of like a really cool memento of just all the different places I've been to, things that I've seen, things that I've done. Have you done stuff like that?
Pretty much the two same. Postcards and stickers are something that I always get. I had a really sweet road map that I traced the route of my entire year on, so I covered the front and back covers of the atlas in different stickers from all the places I visited, and now it's a really cool memento. I also kind of have a mug collection problem, and one of the things, probably my most expensive souvenir, was guidebooks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Unless you have an American Alpine Club membership, which is a really great thing if you're a climber, you can get access to their library and they'll mail you guidebooks that you can use. Otherwise, you have to buy them, and guidebooks can be between 25 to 50 bucks a pop.
Yeah.
So that was, and I love books, so I have a guidebook from everywhere that I went to, and it was really expensive. Something that I wish I had done during my first year on the road, and that I did last summer during my solo trip because it was a work trip, so I really had to track all of my spending very closely, was having a really detailed spreadsheet where you keep track of how much money you're spending in different places like groceries, guidebooks, insurance, and not to kind of nitpick yourself and put pressure on yourself to spend more or less, but to kind of see the trends that you're following, where you're spending the most money, where you can cut stuff out. It's really informative, and if you end up making a small career out of this, it can really help your tax deductions.
Definitely. So I've been keeping a spreadsheet probably for the last 5 years or so, because just personal finances were something that my parents really instilled in me. This is really just transferred into van life as well. And it's awesome because I never really have to wonder, do I have enough money for this? Do I have enough money to go out and grab some food with friends whenever I'm in a cool town or anything like that? Because I have that budgeted out. And if I don't have that, I can move money around from my budget so I can have money for something specific, or just don't do it and move on with your life and be happy. Keeping a budget, it really helps out a lot. Definitely recommend doing that.
Be an adult.
Adulting's hard.
Adulting is hard. That's why we're living in vans.
It's very hard. Thanks for watching this video. We hope that you found it helpful and informative. Katie, how can people find you on the internet?
You can find me all over the internet. You can look me up at Katie Boue on any social platform. You can check out katieboue.com to learn more about my work, or if you want more from my year in the van, check out some of my old blog posts at themorningfresh.com.
All of her links are in the description below. And if you don't know me, my name is Justin Fricke. I'm a YouTuber, daily vlogger, just vlog about all of my daily adventures. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, consider subscribing. Again, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And until next time, see you on the road.